Hello everybody, my name is Mitch. Today we're going to go over a fight breakdown predictions video for Isreal Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori 2, which is targeted for the middleweight title fight at UFC 263 for the main event. I've got their stats up here, so let's go ahead and get started. We have Isreal Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori, the last style bender versus the Italian Dream. For Isreal Adesanya, well, I have their countries here. They're from Nigeria and Italy, respectively. We know that Isreal Adesanya actually trains out of City Kickboxing in New Zealand. Marvin Vettori, I believe he trains in California. I'm understanding with Kelvin Gastelum. I'm not sure who else, but that's a good enough name for me. Now, we have 31 years of age, 6'6" for champion, 185 pounds, 80-inch reach, and a 44-inch leg reach. For Marvin Vettori, we have 27 years old, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, a 74-inch reach, and 41-inch leg reach. I do think that this reach advantage will play a part just because Isreal Adesanya is such a great striker and he's going to want to use that striking. Initially, I think Marvin Vettori's going to want to get close and try to pressure, maybe get a takedown. At least once we look at his or their first fight, rather, we can see why Marvin Vettori may be thinking in that direction. But at any rate, again, I think this reach will play a part. Let's go ahead and get started with breaking this fight down a little further. Now, this is a rematch, so of course I want to talk about their first encounter, and then I'm going to go over all of their fights that they've each had leading up until their second fight, or the rematch coming up here. I believe it is June 12th. I'm not going to talk about the Jan fight other than right now. With that being at 205, I feel like that can kind of be thrown out the window, other than we did see that Jan was able to get takedowns and lay on top of Izzy and control him on the ground. But we can also see signs of that in the Marvin Vettori fight here, so I don't want to focus too much on that Jan fight. So getting started with their first fight, we saw Marvin Vettori pressure early in the first round and try to go for takedowns, and Izzy was able to defend them all, and it looked pretty bad for Marvin. It looked like he was going to have to stay standing, and that was going to be a problem. In the second round, I did see that Marvin Vettori did better than expected standing up with Izzy, especially considering how not well the first round went for him. I could see how Marvin Vettori believes that he won that round. However, I do think it leaned more toward Izzy. And then, of course, we have the third round where Marvin was able to complete the takedown, control Izzy on the ground. He definitely won that third round. I do think Izzy won the fight. I think we learned that Marvin definitely can take Izzy down, potentially can stand with Izzy, although probably doesn't want to go down that route. After seeing this fight, I can't imagine Marvin's plan isn't to try to weather the storm standing if he can, but get close, because you don't want to stay standing with Izzy too long. He will use that range and pick you apart. And for Izzy, I feel like he wants to stay on the outside, kind of kick the legs, do what he did in this fight, stay standing, win the standing exchanges, and spend the least amount of time and the least amount of rounds like he did in round 3, where he got taken down, because I think Marvin Vettori does have the power and ability to control him there. His two fights after the loss against Cesar Ferreira and Andrew Sanchez, I thought were pretty similar. We see a lot of moving forward with Marvin Vettori, and we see him strike more often, more accurately, and with more power. He seems like the oppressor in both of those fights, and he just kind of moves forward on his opponents and does what he wants. He doesn't actually go for too many takedowns between these fights, if I remember correctly. It's a lot of just kind of bullying against the cage, pushing, hitting harder, hitting more. Just kind of trying to outwork the opponents and kind of be the shark in there. In this fight with Carl Roberson, this was a fight with a lot of scrambling that eventually ended up in Marvin Vettori getting a submission. It was honestly Marvin Vettori winning these scramble wrestling exchanges. A lot of it seemed to be because of power. Again, Marvin Vettori just seems to have a lot of power for the middleweight division, just brute force his way through his opponents. Marvin Vettori's next two fights after that were against Jack Hermanson and Kevin Holland. These two pictures kind of sum up Kevin Holland's last 2 fights to Marvin Vettori and also Derek Brunson. Just a lot of takedowns, a lot of control over 5 rounds. And now in this Jack Hermansson fight, I feel like we learn a few things. Marvin Vettori and his team definitely comes with a game plan. Sometimes they come to wrestle, sometimes they come to just pressure and stand up. And in Jack Hermansson versus Vettori, the plan was to stand up with Hermansson. Hermansson is very crafty on the ground, so it seems like Vettori and the team did not want to be there. We also learned that Vettori loves fighting. He's always smiling in there in the face-offs and in the fights, which is honestly pretty intimidating to me. Early on, we see Marvin Vettori really oppress Jack Hermansson. I think he gets a knockdown in the first round. Really good early. In the final rounds, we see Jack Hermansson kind of start to pick up steam, kind of start to come back, but ultimately the damage had been done, and Marvin Vettori did win that fight. Now we'll look at Izzy's side of things since his fight with Marvin Vettori. All I knew at this point around this Brad Tavares fight was there was this guy. He says he's a great striker, and he seems to really like anime. In this Brad Tavares fight, he just, outclasses Brad Tavares. Pretty much wins every moment of that fight standing up. Moving on to the Derek Brunson one, there was some heat going into this one, a little bit of tension. Isreal Adesanya silences it with a nice KO, and I think it's the first time we see him start to do these dances and stuff. In this fight here, Isreal Adesanya kind of beats Anderson Silva handedly. I know a lot of people gave Silva a round, but I feel like there was a lot of respect given in there. We can see before and after the fight just constant respect from Izzy, and rightfully so. I mean, Anderson Silva is a legend. I think he wanted to respect him and just win the fight, but not break him. Moving forward, we have his rise to the title, starting with this fight with Kelvin Gastelum. I'll start by saying if you haven't seen that fight, you need to go watch that fight. I believe it got Fight of the Year in 2019. Really just an all-out war, standing kickboxing battle, just really back and forth. Kelvin Gastelum just slowly moves forward, and he's willing to take punches, to give punches, and he definitely does that. He eats some from Izzy. He gives some good ones to Izzy. Isreal Adesanya wins. The interim belt, I believe at the time, goes into Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker's plan to deal with the undefeated Izzy at the time was to bring the fight to him, charge him, rush him, give him power, and it was working really well, I thought, until the end of the first round, where Izzy gets, I believe it was a check hook, and knocks him down, like literally at the bell, at the buzzer. Second round, a little bit of the same, but again, the damage had been done. Rob had already been dropped, and he seemed to still be hurt. Izzy drops him again in the second round, finishes him, and takes the middleweight belt. Next, we have Izzy's 2 title defenses. We'll start with the Yoel Romero one. This was a strange fight where Yoel was doing kind of some weird stuff, some like shuffle feet stuff, some weird reactions to the kicks. He ends up hitting Izzy pretty hard in the first round, and I think that leads to a lot of this, where Yoel's trying to hit him and Izzy's trying to push him away and not get hit, and it leads to kind of a boring fight that apparently made Yoel very angry. And then with the Paulo Costa fight, he kind of just kicks him everywhere, kicks him in the leg, kicks him in the body, eventually knocks him down and finishes him, and then does whatever you want to call that. The pick for this fight from me is going to be, drum roll, Isreal Adesanya. Isreal Adesanya is the middleweight champion. I feel like Marvin Vettori hasn't done enough to show me that he's ready to take the belt. I do think Marvin Vettori is going to come in there with a solid game plan. I just think that Izzy and his team is going to break the game plan. I think Izzy's going to use a lot of kicks, leg kicks, kicks to the body to try to keep him away. I do think Izzy will be able to stop the takedown at least for 3 out of 5 rounds, and if Marvin doesn't get a takedown, I don't see him being able to win that round. So if Izzy cannot get taken down for 3 rounds, I think that he will be able to win the fight. But yep, that is my pick, Isreal Adesanya. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment and tell me what you thought about it. Leave a thumbs up if you'd like, or a thumbs down if you'd like. Please give me a hand and hit that subscribe button. That's very helpful for me. I also post videos every week, so you can check those out as well. If you like talking about fights, feel free to hit me up on any other platforms. But that's it from me for today. I'll see you guys Saturday. Peace.